Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes podcast.
I'm Albert Berg,
I'm Tony Southcott.
coming to you on a Tuesday night, watching some weird movies.
Yeah, kind of a funny story about why this isn't a Saturday morning.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
I
it's
laughed
kind
all
of
day Saturday.
it's a little bit pathetic in some ways, but I've got a problem where my alarm clock just it's really old. It's probably 10, 15 years old. I've had it since I was in high school, and it's just not working anymore. So I look over, I see that I am not only like late waking up, but I'm 41 minutes late for recording, so I slept in by almost 2 hours. I figure that there's probably 8 angry tweets and like 4 text messages. Tony, where are you? Tony, where are you?
I
So
don't
I
I don't,
jump.
I don't get angry, but I do try to spam you a little bit because I think if he's asleep, maybe he'll hear his phone ding. I'm not
Very
like,
true.
Tony, why have you ruined my life? There is no podcast.
But yeah, so I jump directly out of bed, and the first thing that happens is I land on some bubble wrap, and I watched this movie late the night before. Like it was a little past midnight, and in this movie there's a certain thing with nails and things, and that immediately went into my head. So as soon as I hit the bubble wrap, I end up diving forward, like thinking like that there. It was an irrational reaction. Like it was bubbles, not nails in my feet, nothing like that. But I end up diving forward, hitting my head on a file cabinet, and just making a complete fool out of myself. Then rolling over to check the like persistent, not quite angry but frustrated with co-host who isn't on time text messages.
Well, you're still waking up. When I got that message where you talked about what happened to you when you stepped on the bubble wrap, like in my mind, you're thinking like shots are going off outside. Like it's just like you step on the road, it's like pop, pop, pop. You're like ah, you're like half addled brain that's gotten
Yeah.
2 hours too much sleep is just like hit the deck. They're going down. They've
And
got a
that
crossbow.
that's pretty much what it was. It was a mix of like the nail thought, the startling like feeling of just your feet not being quite able to purchase the ground. It was bad. That was one of the lamest 2 minutes I've ever had. Not ever, but it's definitely pretty bad.
Anyway, so we're here on a Tuesday night instead of a Saturday morning like we usually do. Not that it matters to y'all; it'll come out the same day. But weird
Yeah.
energy for us. So if we get crazy, but we are talking about Your Next, which, as Tony sort of alluded to, is a home invasion slasher type of movie. I would say, sort of.
Yeah. It has aspects of a slasher, but it doesn't go the full way, really.
Well, I thought that was really interesting because one of the things that you see in this movie is you have, I mean, the guy on the cover of the movie, if you've seen the DVD or the, on Netflix or whatever, is the masks, right? I think they have 3 different masks. There's a pig mask, a wolf mask, and a sheep mask, right?
I thought there was a tiger mask, too, but I might be mistaken.
I don't remember that, but it could be. But anyway, they're all white. They're
Yeah.
kind of samey looking, but not identical. And the intruders in this movie that do show up, like they're wearing these masks, and so you're instinctively just wired to think of them as like thoughtless killing machines, right?
Yeah.
But they're actually like there's moments where something will happen and they'll break down and or like get tired or be injured, and you're not expecting that from the masked killer. And it was
Yeah.
a really weird sort of inversion of that horror trope. It kept,
Yeah.
I mean, you still were scared of them.
You expect like the Iron Man type thing, or I think it's actually the trope is called Man of Iron, where like he just keeps getting stabbed, he keeps getting hit, like he just keeps coming, like a Jason type, or just so many other thrillers where they're completely impenetrable. And this, they actually carry over like the little injuries they get, and they're limping around, and they're getting like like their condition is degrading as time goes on. And same goes for the people in the house.
I thought it wasn't just the physical either. Like, they actually show emotional reactions
Yeah.
as well. When certain people die and stuff happens, like, you'll see them, even with the masks on, you'll see them like, this is a big deal. And
Yeah.
eventually, this is kind of a spoiler, but not really, but eventually they take the masks off, and then you really kind of get the sense that, oh, these are just other characters in the movie. They're not, like, monsters.
Yeah. And the thing is, it starts out feeling like they're monsters. Like, in just the way they're showing, like, what they do to the neighbors in the first couple minutes of the movie. And progressively, like, whenever you see how they work and what they're doing, it feels like it's going to be generic like that. So it's awesome that the movie actually progressed that.
I felt like that this was a movie that was made for horror movie fans.
Yeah.
Like, it's not... I won't want to say it's the greatest movie I've ever seen, Tony. It's not a great movie. The characters are kind of paper thin. The motivations are a little bit... I mean, they're there. They exist, but they don't really delve into them. They don't bring that out. But it is very much a movie that's aware of the horror genre and what horror fans expect, and knows exactly how much of what they expect to give to them without being 100% predictable.
For sure. And I think that goes in with just the directors or the director and the writer that went into this, including that Ty West was actually a part of it too.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was the first. This is a very minor spoiler because it happens like 15 minutes in. He's the first one to get killed. He takes a crossbow bolt to the head.
I did not realize that was Ty West.
Yep.
I loved the interaction between his character and that one brother. Like, the brother who kept because he's telling him about his, like, super, like, hipster, underground film documentary thing.
Cleveland Underground Film Festival or something.
And the brother is just, like, trolling him so hard. Like, do you ever make any commercials? I love commercials. All the work that goes into those are great. I was like, I identify with you, sir. I identify with your trollster ways.
Guy was definitely a master troll. Up to a point where it actually was not the best for him.
Well, yeah. But I still felt like that he was a reasonably... Like, he didn't... I never hated him as a character.
Yeah, and he definitely cared... Like, despite what they showed him being kind of a jerk, he definitely cared for his family and everything.
Well, yeah, and he was... It almost wasn't like he was being obnoxious. He just couldn't help pushing the guy's buttons.
Yeah.
Which is what I... Like, he wasn't trying to be mean. He just... Like, it was an opportunity that was too good for him not to go for.
Yeah.
For the record, I think commercials are, for real, are awesome. If you make... Like, commercials are so difficult. And you're, like, creating a slice of... like, an idea in 30 seconds or less. And this mood and this tone, and you have to hit everything just right. Like, you create nostalgia or, like, whatever. Like, the art of making a commercial, this is totally a tangent, but I legitimately feel like that's an incredible accomplishment. I know that it's dumb and, like, it's just to sell stuff, but it's actually something that you wouldn't think about as how challenging it would be to do until you start actually analyzing, like, wait a minute, how are they making you feel this in 20 seconds or 30 seconds?
Yeah. It's an interesting thought just because, like, you also have so many people pulling in every direction. Like, you have to get this in, you have to get this in, you have to get this in, and you have to tell the story.
Right.
Like, you have to come up with the frame that actually makes you want something. And, like, there have been commercials that have been, like, 2 or 3 seconds that have, like, caught my attention. Then there's just 95% of them which are garbage.
Car commercials, I'll tell you, no, the two ones that I love, that I think are the best, because they're selling something so, like, not real, are, like, perfume commercials are one of them. Because perfume, every time, if you want to make a perfume commercial, can't you just be like, it'll make you smell good? And then that's the end of the commercial, right? Like, no. If you watch a perfume commercial, like, they're selling you this, like, fantasy lifestyle, right? Like, the woman walks in and the curtains are blowing and there's the man there and, like, there's, like, they're in Paris or something. It's just like, and then they just show the picture of the perfume. And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? But
it's pretty much the same as, like, a diamond commercial, except you'll get one quick shot of a ring or an earring or something.
Exactly, yeah. Although with a diamond commercial, you can show them the diamond, right? Like,
yeah.
You can show them the thing that they will be wearing. They're not going to carry around that perfume bottle.
Yeah,
like,
you might get, like, a spritz at one point.
I said there was 2 commercials, and I forgot what the other one was.
Maybe truck commercials, since you're buying the
idea. No, but you see that, like, they can tell you this gets this kind of horsepower and this mileage, and it'll haul this much. They can give you the facts about the truck. They still want to, like, have the guy with the deep voice and make you feel like you need to be a man in a man's world. It's America, But, like, they have a thing to sell to you. Literally, there's nothing for you to, like, there's no way for you to experience the perfume as it exists except through that commercial.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they are creating an experience in your mind such that they hope when you spray that perfume out of the bottle, the scent of that, just smelling it, will make you feel like that you've gotten the experience that they pitched you in the commercial. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Every commercial could be a perfume commercial. They're just like are so far out there.
Yeah. I gotta say, there are a few commercials that will make me never buy from certain companies. I will never go to Jared. I will
Why?
never,
Just 'cause
ever
they're
go to
annoying?
Jared Jewelers because I hate those commercials so much.
It can only be Jared!
He went to Jared. No, I never will. Fuck off.
That is a little bit of a. There are, speaking of things that are bad, like that they have a bad slogan. He went to Jared, but the worst. There's that Life Alert thing that has the slogan "I've fallen and I can't get up," and that one's pretty bad. But the worst slogan that I can think of is Foster Grants, Tony.
Foster Grants.
Do you know what Foster Grants are?
I don't.
They're sunglasses. Do you know what their slogan is?
What's that?
Their slogan for Foster Grant is, "Who's that behind those Foster Grants?" It's awful. And they put it on all of their posters and all of their advertising materials. Who's that behind those Foster Grants? Like, nobody knows what a Foster Grant is. Like, if you have Ray-Bans or something, that's a question that somebody's going to ask. Who's that behind those Ray-Bans? Nobody's going to say. Nobody in the history of the world legitimately ever asked, who is that behind those Foster Grants? It didn't happen. It never happened one time.
That reminds me of that Tumblr that's a joke, that it's supposed to be just pictures of people scanning QR codes, but there's nothing there.
What?
You know how like some Tumblrs are just collections of a certain thing? The one that's called like people scanning QR codes, and there's just nothing there because nobody's gonna pull their phone out to like actually scan a QR code on a poster to go to McDonald's website.
Oh, okay, I get it. It's the joke is the people don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm very slow. I was like, what? Why is that? Like,
I did a
thought
poor
maybe
job
the QR code
explaining.
wasn't there. Like they were just pointing their phone at nothing, or it's like the things Jon Snow knows subreddit. The joke is that it's empty.
I hope no one's ever allowed to post there.
That's what happens when the button rides down, Tony.
The button experiment is technically over right now.
Oh, is it?
Because of a weird fault that stopped it. They're deciding if they're going to resurrect it or not.
What happened?
I'm not entirely sure. It was on top of their subreddit the other day. I am one of the Greys. I watched that thing for days and did not press.
No, I mean, like, well, I didn't watch it. I just assumed my time was more valuable than sitting there watching.
I kept a tab open. I kept a tab open and looked and be like, oh, it hit 14 seconds. I should have pressed it. Then I could have red flare.
I just wanted to, like, I figured if someone gives you a countdown and says, see what happens when this counts all the way down, I would see what happens. I mean, it's not like they're going to take Reddit offline, Tony. It's not going to be like, oh, well, yeah, you let the buttons expire. I guess we're going to close, this incredibly profitable website. I mean, probably not super profitable, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world.
I wasn't even wondering what would happen. I knew it was just a full-on experiment to see how long people would endure it.
Well, I guess there's an actual maximum limit of how many people could push it, right? So,
yeah, last time I looked, it was over 800,000 people had pressed it.
Anyway, for people who don't know, Reddit had made an experiment where they had a button with a countdown timer, and the countdown timer goes to 0. But if you had an account that had been made before the button had been created, you could press it and add time to the timer. Is that what it did?
It would reset it to 60.
Okay, right. So it goes up to 60 seconds. So you wouldn't add. It's not like everybody can push it and add 3 years. So if everybody pushed it at once, you just still reset it to 60. And anyway, so it's this whole thing where if you want to keep the thing going, and do you press it now or do you wait until it's down a little bit and press it because maybe somebody else isn't going to press it? Or if you want to see what's going to happen, then you don't have to do anything. You just wait around and see what happens.
Yeah.
Which is what I want to do. I don't have time for that. Hey, who has time for that? Who has time to sit around and obsess about some stupid button, Tony? It's not
I don't
real.
know. We've dedicated like 5 minutes of a podcast to a button.
That's because we're creating something here. Like, it might be entertaining to someone. I guess the button's entertaining to someone, but like, I have no time for
Oh,
that.
the most
I'm
entertaining
doing
part
this,
of it has
Tony,
been
all the time, practically. I'm doing this.
the most entertaining part of that has been the memes that have come out of it, like how I imagine the 60-second people look at life and it's just like or look at their browser and it's like 15 toolbars and just everything's clicked on, just things like that. I'm easily entertained.
I guess.
But there have been some pretty good memes that have been brought out of it.
I don't feel like we're really done talking about your next, Tony.
We aren't.
Had
We
a
didn't
big
really
tangent
get
about commercials and got all over the place.
We didn't talk about the main character, like Aaron. We didn't talk about anything really.
Well, we said there was a home invasion. We said there wasn't very much character development. Really, that's all you need to know about. Like, if you want to know if you're going to watch this film, like, up front, if you like horror movies at all, this is definitely your movie. Yeah. If you don't like horror movies at all, this is not, like, it's not doing anything different. It's not like The Babadook, where it's this super character-driven thing that's really unlike other types of horror movies. It's very horror movie-ish, but just done well.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, what's the movie with the mirror?
Oculus?
Oculus, yes. It reminds me of that a little bit, because that was another one, although even that one I think had stronger characters than this. But where, you had good characters and stuff, but it didn't really add up to anything other than just a scary movie with a mirror.
Yeah. It's just a journeyman effort that actually like has payoff and has like a good story to it.
How impressive is the Blumhouse company right now, by the way? They're the ones who produced that, right?
I believe so.
They're doing all of the horror movie in a house things ever, which is what this is, right? Like 90% of this movie is shot inside the house. It's just like Insidious or what's the other one we saw with Ethan Hawke? Sinister, which I didn't love, but I mean, a lot of people did, and it's another one of theirs. They really get that tone right. They did the Paranormal Activity. They're just like, those guys are on fire in the horror world right now. They were responsible for that one last year, the Exorcism one, or maybe it was 2 years ago now. Dang it, the one everybody liked, The Conjuring.
The Conjuring, yes.
I'm pretty sure Blumhouse did The Conjuring. Like, they do all these relatively low-budget movies that feel super, super polished.
Yeah, they just
have really nice, like, good tone, and like regardless of whether you like the movie or not.
They just put the time and money into the equipment and making sure the shots are perfect. And it's got to be so much cheaper just to rent one place instead of having to scout 50 other places.
Yeah, and so they had their basically one location. They had another location that they shot at the beginning, and then they have some stuff in cars. But really, that's it. And then like a couple of, running around outside at night, they probably shot over a couple days. Like, in the grand scheme of things, they're making very low-budget movies that are, they don't have to get a ton of traction to make back their money.
Yeah.
Which is a really smart business model. It's sort of kind of like the Asylum business model, Tony, where not quite on that level of like super low budget, but they're really like keeping themselves within certain boundaries and saying, okay, we're going to create atmosphere, we're going to put art into this, we're going to invest in stories that we like, but ultimately we're not going to, bet the farm on this. These are all going to be little small things, and we're going to do the best we can, and it's very difficult for them not to make back the money that they've invested because they haven't invested that much.
And if they end up having a runaway hit, I'm sure they could put a little more money into these, but I never felt like there was anything lacking with this as far as like effects or anything of that nature.
Right. And a lot, especially with this one, there was nothing supernatural here, so it was all practical, simple stuff with blood, and not even a lot of that because there's not a lot of gunplay or anything. It's just sort of like cuts and
it still had some brutal kills to it, though, too.
It did. Can I say, there's that trap, right? And this, I don't know if it's too much.
The first trap, like where...
the sledgehammer trap.
Ah, yeah.
All right, like she sets... that won't spoil anything too much, but the main, the final girl, quote-unquote, of the movie is turns out to be this crazy survivalist person just because that makes the movie interesting. Again,
Yeah.
not a lot of deep characterization. She's just like, oh yeah, that was
Her
crazy.
dad was a survivalist from the Australian outback, and she's just like, she knows what she's doing.
Right, so she sets up, like, once she gets, like, her feet under her and realizes what's going on, she sets up this trap with this sledgehammer, or I guess it's an axe or something.
Yeah, it's an axe and, yeah.
And anyway, she sets it up by the front door, and then everybody, for the rest of the movie, not for the rest of the movie, but, like, people who have no business climbing in and out of a window are climbing in and out of the window just so that thing doesn't get set off, just so you're like, when is the person going to set it off? I felt like that was a little bit... There were times when people climbed in windows that I was like, there's no way that person would climb in a window.
Yeah. Makes you really want that Home Alone, like, adult edition.
Well, this was close to it. Between this and Skyfall, we pretty much got it.
Pretty much.
I will say, though, like, the one dude... There's a part in this movie where a guy steps on a nail. All right?
Yeah.
And they make that look like the most excruciating thing in the world. And as a person who has stepped on several nails in my life, I'm here to tell you, it's not that bad. I mean, it hurts. It's not like a trip to the park, but it's not that bad. Like, you step on it, you go, ouch, you yank your foot off of it. If your thing is stuck in it, then you put your other foot down and yank your foot out. And you go about the rest of your day. And if you need tetanus shot, you get a tetanus shot. When I was 17... I was working as a brick mason's assistant, and I stepped on a nail, and my boss wouldn't even let me go home. He was just like, nah, you keep working. It'll be fine. You know what? I was fine, Tony.
I've seen some pretty bad job site accidents, and they've never involved a nail.
I mean, it's just one of those things. I think it seems like it looks good on camera, but you don't even bleed. Like, most of the time, if you step on a nail, you don't even bleed out of the hole because it's a puncture wound. In fact, that's why they're so serious and scary, because if that has, like, the bacteria on it, on the nail, doesn't get flushed out or attacked by the antibodies because it doesn't, like, break through as many blood vessels.
Yeah.
So, they didn't... I don't know why that bugged me, but thinking about it afterwards, I was just like, that guy was a wuss. Get up off that nail and keep hunting them people.
What if it went, like, through a nerve?
I don't know what that means, Tony. It hurts. Of course, your skin is covered in nerves. I'm
just saying, what if it went through, like, a thick nerve?
I don't know. Okay?
I'm just trying to make it plausible. I know what you're saying. Like, I've stepped on a nail, but it's never gone through my foot. Like, I've had to sit there and pull a piece of not a piece of plywood, a 2x4 off of the bottom of my foot.
Did it come out the top, though? I mean, I didn't think it came out the top of it. Did it?
See it, like, go out the top of the shoe, which was kind of a cool practical effect.
Okay, well, maybe I'll cut him some slack for that, but I still feel like, especially what we know about those characters now, like, he should have been tougher than that.
Yeah.
Like, just deal with it. You're getting paid a lot of money to do what you're doing. Not any spoilers by who or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was wondering if they were going to clear up, because I could see it being a slasher movie where they don't explain the reasoning behind what's happening, like some slasher movies. I'm glad that they did actually have a reasoning for all this.
Yeah, it was kind of weak, though. For me, it's
better than nothing, though.
I guess it's better than nothing. I just didn't buy that the people who did what they did were motivated enough to do that as coldly as they did it.
Yeah.
I had no background on them I don't want to spoil anything, because there's several twists in this movie that kind of, like, it starts out like this, sort of home invasion thing, and then things move back and forth a little bit, sort of throw you some curveballs. And I don't want to spoil those curveballs because they're part of the fun of the movie. Well, really the main fun of the movie. But I didn't buy it didn't feel like they really earned that to me. Yeah. And it wasn't a fail. It wasn't like the movie fell apart because of what, they had or hadn't earned. It was fine. Like I said, it could have been different, maybe. I don't know. As a slasher film that digs a little deeper, it was okay. But there was some of it that I just wanted to go slightly further.
I can see what you're saying with that. I was just satisfied that it wasn't like these are just random people breaking in with masks and everything.
I mean, when does that happen though, Tony? Like they
I've
always
seen
have some kind of motivation.
I've seen some pretty bad, like older, like '80s style slashers where there's no real apparent cause for what's happening.
I mean, I guess if you go like to Jason, but even he's got sort of some kind of motivation. You know, he hates people having sex.
For
I'm
some
watching a
reason.
great parody movie, so a quote unquote parody movie on Netflix, by the way, right now called Sleepaway Camp 2.
I was about to mention Sleepaway Camp One for a movie where they didn't give like a really great justification for the slashing.
I didn't see one, all right, but the
You should
Sleepaway
because
Camp
it's
2
actually
is
like a serious
basically
one.
like for people who didn't think the Jason movies went far enough. You get more boobs and more brutality. Like they call it a parody. It's not funny. Like they're not really making fun of it. They're just like on a lower, not that much lower budget, but relatively low budget. You know, just going way further into that sort of stereotypical Jason slasher mythos.
Yeah,
That being said, in 2, I really like the main slasher character girl because I may not have a lot of justification, quote unquote, but her like weird, like peppy, kind of uplifting. She's just trying to make everybody behave and like give. You know, she gives good advice to people at one point. She's like, "Oh man, you know, don't worry, that guy, he'll know, you know, that girl's not right for him. He can see that you're a good girl and like." Helps the girl out and then you know goes on about her way killing the other wayward campers that are having sex and she can't have that in her camp but she tells everybody she sent them home. It's like, I mean, like as a, it's not a great movie but she's a like weirdly compelling character.
yeah, and the main slasher from the first one is pretty compelling as well, but it's the justifications just aren't there.
I don't know, it's supposed to be the same one, Tony. It's supposed to be the same girl like came back from the hospital or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I hadn't seen the first
I
one,
can't
so
talk more about that girl without like major spoilers. And I know it's from like 1983, but still.
I was gonna say, what, like, is that a? I never heard of Sleepaway Camp, Tony. Is that something that people are worried about getting spoiled?
It's like whenever I first was introduced to it, the beginning of the YouTube video was talking about like how good the movie was and how he was going to have to expose things that happen at the end. So make sure you watch it before this. And he made a big deal out of it because at the end, at the like whenever it came out, was very shocking. And I'm not sure it's even the same thing if you like in Sleepaway Camp 2. We'd have to like bleep this out probably. Is she
Well, I
a
don't want to
dude?
have to do that. So,
Is she a dude in Sleepaway Camp 2?
oh, okay. They mentioned that,
Or no?
but then
Like,
like in
excuse me,
Sleepaway
that's
Camp
insensitive.
2, she had a sex change.
Oh, she had a sex change. Okay.
Yeah,
It's the last thing you see. And the weirdest part of Sleepaway Camp 1 is you find out that she actually, like, I don't know if you could say she was transgender because she was kind of forced into it by her mom. I don't know if she wanted to be a girl or not. But the last scene you see is basically her naked, looking all crazy with her dong hanging out, holding somebody's head. And then it just cuts to black, and you don't even figure out what happens to the rest of the campers or anything.
that sounds bizarre. I
And
wonder
I
if it's the
wish
same
that
actor slash actress. I
I
guess.
think that was the only movie she ever did, and her mom didn't let her be in any movie or any scene where somebody actually got killed, so they had to get a body double that was kind of more muscular and all this. And like the last scene where she's holding up the head is actually a mask of the girl. That's why it looks so creepy and weird.
I don't want to like. We are probably going to talk about Karate Robo Zaborgar next week. Me and Brentley watched that today, and there is a face change scene in this that was like because of the uncanny valley. That reminded me of that. Like it's so creepy.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about that. Okay.
That movie sounds absolutely insane, and I can't wait to watch it next
The
week.
thing is, like, I tried to tweet about it, but there's so much stuff happening. It's impossible to
So
tweet.
you're running into what I had with The Lonely Mountain.
It's worse. I mean, I say worse. Like, I like this movie is so much fun, Tony. I don't know if I portrayed the fun that I have with this movie. There is a sex scene between a human and a cyborg in this, and the way that like they have the big lead up. It's a very Japanese comedy kind of thing. Like they're making fun of their tropes that they have of the giant robots and the stuff. So like there's a cyborg girl who's starting to turn good, and then like the good guy is kind of starting to turn bad, and they get together in this cave, and they just basically he says, "Take me, I'm yours." And she opens her mouth, and a snake comes out of the mouth and just smacks him in the face. And then like her boobs open up, and there's tentacles coming out of like her robot like bra, boobs, and just like flattering all over his face. And he's just like, like an
for
ecstasy. It
those
was
who
so
couldn't
weird.
For those who couldn't tell, this is, as you said, the most Asian movie ever.
It is the most Asian movie ever. It's got tentacles. It's got like girls in bikinis who are also robots, but they are football robots. But the footballs are bombs. We're
That's
gonna
awesome.
talk about that next week.
Yeah, we can't get too deep into that.
It's so weird. Ah. Any final thoughts on your next, Tony?
Definitely a movie for horror fans. I wish I knew what the budget was on it. It was well acted by a few of the characters. The others might not have been around long enough to really do it. You didn't get super connected to anyone but the main girl, I felt. So the deaths didn't quite have the impact, although the trap in the beginning was pretty brutal.
I thought
It's
like
just
that the build up to that especially, and I don't want to spoil it. I will say that it's the girl like running out the door, and they go to run to when she goes to run out the door. In my weirdo mind, I just thought like they're gonna not open the door fast enough, and she's just gonna smash into the door because they kept building it up. And I was like, what else could happen? And something else besides that happened because it's not a stupid comedy. But if
yeah.
they ever do the scary movie take on Your Next, they gotta put the girl just smashing into the door because they didn't open it. Because that would be awesome.
Yeah. There could definitely be a scary movie equivalent of this. You wouldn't even have to add other paranormal elements. You could make this happen.
Well,
Damon
usually the
Wayans
scary
look like
movies. By the way, it's a $1 million budget on Your Next, so that's like Asylum level budget. That's like
Yeah.
probably
one of
close to
the bigger Asylum movies.
yeah, like Sharknado probably has about $1 million.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw a movie this week that had a $30 million budget that looked really good and bombed pretty damn hard.
what was that?
Odd Thomas,
Oh yeah, that had 30 million.
$30 million budget.
Wow.
And I was reading over that, and I was like, "Oh, this is one of those that they're saying that doesn't really exist anymore because it's like mid-level, like between 10 and 50 million, because it's usually like these low-budget $1 million movies, and then these giant sprawling $100 million movies. Now you're not getting a lot of the in between. And then I look at the box office take, and it's like 520,000.
That's why, Tony.
And but then also like you look further, and there's all these lawsuits happening because there was no advertising budget.
I think
They
that
put
what
30
happens.
million into a movie and didn't advertise it at all, and didn't get like it. They didn't even get enough of it, enough prints out for movie theaters to carry it.
I think what happens there mostly is that the studio realizes that it's not going to be a good movie, or that there's problems somewhere, and they're like, "We've already sunk 30 million into this. Like advertising it out the wazoo is not going to help us. So
Yeah.
let's just put it in a couple theaters, put it in DVD." Let it do something on DVD. Brantley saw that movie because he really likes the books, and he was happy with it. I read
Yeah.
several reviews that were not, but Brantley's fairly easy to please. So
I feel like you would like it. It's a similar vein to The Frighteners, just better effects.
okay,
Some
I
cool
read the
stuff
first
happening
book. I actually read the first 2 books, I think, of Odd Thomas. I was just mad that they didn't have. I heard they didn't have Elvis in there, and I was just like, I'm out.
Yeah, the only thing that was Elvis was a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, he has like Elvis just like rides around with him all the time in the book. Like he just like he never says
Does
anything.
not sound like a Dean Koontz book.
Do what?
Dean Koontz wrote those, right?
Yeah. So it
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
sound
it.
like Dean Koontz?
Yeah, for some reason I always think of like not Insomnia, Intensity and stuff like that. That's a little more serious from him.
Dean Koontz is always a little bit silly though.
Yeah,
He's got those teleporting incest people and like the just that one guy with the cuckoo clock heart, or I don't know. There was like something with a doll that chasing people down.
maybe I just haven't read enough.
I'm not a big Dean Koontz fan. I'm not gonna lie. So, but I read some of his stuff back in the day. I'm kind of surprised at how popular he seems to be that more of it doesn't get adapted.
Yeah.
But
Maybe it's stuff like this. It's just a little too weird for the general
yeah,
populace.
but Clive Barker gets adapted all the time. We talk about this. Like, there are some of these authors that, for whatever reason, seem to be in on the Hollywood side of things more than other authors, and really get their movies adapted pretty often. Michael Crichton was like that. Clive Barker's like that. And a lot
Michael
of other.
Crichton always got the budgets, though.
They don't always have the budgets, no. But I mean, they'll still be. I mean, Clive Barker's. I've seen a couple of his movies, and they're not always good, but they don't look like garbage. Especially with the the effects and everything, they look okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
If Tom Clancy were still alive, he'd be making that sweet video game adaptation money more than movie money.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around. That's weird. I don't know. Like, at what point do you become? I guess it was kind of early in the video game scene when they first started slapping his name on stuff. It was like in the late 90s, right?
Yeah, like Rainbow Six, the first one, I think was on Nintendo 64.
Yeah, so I guess that was kind of a gimmick and they just kept going with it. But, I mean, I can't think of any other author that has their name on a video game.
They made a really good sequel to The Thing on PlayStation 1.
Okay.
And that one had the author's name on it, so.
The author of the original short story or the director of the movie?
Of the original short story, I believe. I'd have to look at the case again.
I would be shocked if it doesn't say John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, it's John Carpenter now that I think about it.
Yeah, John Carpenter did not write that story, Tony.
Yeah.
He adapted it. That's one of those weird things where, like, was John Carpenter's The Thing a remake of The Thing from Another World, or was it a new adaptation of the source material?
Yeah. Either way, the PS1 game was really good for its time. I couldn't go back and play it because it'd be like going back and playing Resident Evil 1 on those terrible graphics. I can deal with some bad graphics, but sometimes things just do not hold up. It was like whenever they were first starting to add a lot more dialogue to video games.
I think Nintendo did it best. I'm really sad because I can't find it now, but my wife got me the Super Mario 64 game, and that holds up. Like, because
it definitely
it's designed for, they're not trying to push the graphics as much as they're just trying to use them in the best possible way. And that
they pushed a style. Yeah. They were pushing a style more than anything else, and it definitely worked. And it's so crazy that was like a launch title with how good that game looked and how well it played.
Well, yeah, they didn't have DLC back then, Tony. It had to work.
Yeah, they actually put time and money into testing.
There were lots of bad games back then, but Nintendo is kind of a weird sort of, especially now, they're becoming this weird outlier where they're not really part of the main video game race, but they're still a major player because people love their properties.
Yeah, and because the DS sells like crazy. The DS is really their bread and butter because the Wii U hasn't been having excellent sales.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. I think that they have potential to come back. From what I hear, Nintendo has buku buckets of cash that they can just live off of if they have to, and I think that they can afford to make some mistakes and figure out what they're doing. And I don't think that. I think they maybe don't really care. They're not in the same mindset that like Xbox or PlayStation are in, where they still think of themselves as a toy company almost.
Yeah. Well, it started out as like a card company.
Right, and so they're really marketing towards children, which is weird because a lot of the people I hear playing their games are adults now who played their games when they were children. So really they're playing, they're sort of banking on that nostalgia, but I guess they're building new fans too. And they're really using that kind of kid-centric gameplay to drive their platforms, whereas a lot of the other platforms, their main titles are things like Halo and Tomb Raider and stuff like that.
Yeah, The Last of Us. And
where like those are very adult-oriented titles. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a different. Like, as a parent, I'm almost more likely if I'm buying something for my kids, I'd probably be more likely to buy a Nintendo product than, you know, an Xbox. Not that I mind X. I love my Xbox. I play with it fairly frequently. But it's, you know, the Nintendo definitely seems like they're pushing for more of that kid-friendly stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a different market. It's a different world.
Also, I think Nintendo's biggest problem right now is that third-party developers really aren't going to them.
Well, they're not
You hear
doing
about all
anything
the
to
big...
entice them, right? Like, it seems like that they're not working to get they don't need the third-party developers. Like, they're fine remaking their old stuff for their new consoles and their handheld stuff. And I think that that's really mostly true of the Wii. Like, I think that there are still people making stuff for the handheld platforms.
Yeah, there are a lot of different developers for the DS and everything, but you look at the biggest hits on the Wii and the Wii U, it's all like Zelda, it's all Mario, it's all Super Smash Brothers.
I was able to get a DSi at the thrift store a couple weeks ago, Tony, before I went on vacation.
Yeah.
And my wife got me Super Scribblenauts. No, I'm sorry, not Super Scribblenauts, regular Scribblenauts for the DSi. And I've been playing that game. That game is fun, but there are some moments in there that are just like infuriating. There was this one level where it's like they're like, help the married, this couple had just got married, like help the couple celebrate their marriage. And I was like, well, what do you celebrate? You throw rice. I put rice out. The wedding guests went and ate the rice that I threw. I was like, okay. They went and ate my rice off the ground. I put out a cake. Like, they went and ate the cake. I gave flowers. The flowers didn't work. I set up a firework. The firework went and hit the groom in the eye and killed him, and I failed the level. I was like, I'm trying to celebrate here. I'm celebrating so hard.
Were you supposed to, like, draw a bed or something?
No, Tony. First of all, you don't draw. In the DS version, you just, like, you tap on, you just write out what you want.
Oh, okay.
You don't draw anything. But no, like, apparently there's a separate cake. Like, I went and looked up a walkthrough on Nintendo, or on YouTube. You have to write wedding cake, and then give the bride flowers, and that'll pass you through the level. But it was so, like, I did the flowers, and for some reason that, you know, it was supposed to be two things. You have to get two things to pass, and I'm just like, I don't know. I've done everything I could think of that you would do at a wedding. What? What do you want from me? I've killed the groom. I'm just gonna release a T-Rex on all of you.
Should have killed the groom and then brought out your own ring.
I tried that too. I gave him a ring. I spawned a priest. The priest just like stands there looking at me like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, marry them. I don't know. It seemed like they were already married, but maybe not.
You should have
I spawned a wedding singer. He got hit in the eye by another firework. Nothing. Didn't work.
Sounds like an interesting game. I've thought about buying it before, but I haven't played my DS in so long.
I'm really liking it. I like my DS. I don't play it. That's my thing that I do right before I go to bed. Like, I get in bed and it's by my bedside, and I just like play it for 5 or 10 minutes until my eyes start to get heavy, and then I go to sleep. So it's a good little go off to bedtime kind of thing.
For sure. I think we've got some questions.
Oh, do we? Because I've got more stuff to talk about. We can take questions, though.
Let's take one question real quick.
Okay.
Run it up. This says, if he's the real Slim Shady and the others are imitating, then why does he ask for the real one to stand up? That's from the Blokebusters podcast, at Blokebusters.
Well, I would assume it's because he knows that no one can respond, Tony. I mean, like, that's the logical answer. He's like, what? You're real Slim Shady can't stand up because he's already standing up here with the microphone in his hand. What?
Yeah, I think the only way that would work is if you had the hype man do it and he stood up.
Is that the question for real? Like, I don't know anything about rap. Slim Shady is, what's his face? Eminem, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He is Marshall Mathers.
Yeah, yeah. He raps things. I don't know anything about rap. I've been listening to blues a lot lately, Tony. That's my new jam. I got my Prime music on. Like the happy blues, not the sad blues. Like where they're talking about, like, I got the blues every day. I got the blues every. It's like, yeah, get down with the blues. Your wife left you. Your dog left you. You don't got no money.
Makes me want to play harmonica right now. I feel like that's the only instrument I might be good at
Oh
because
man,
it's simple. But I know it's not simple.
there's some great licks there though. It's this like, weird. And I'm on the classic blues station, Tony, because I don't know anything about modern blues, and I don't really want to get into that. I want to like experience it. It's like some of this stuff is like old recordings, like sound like they're from the 1930s or something, and like really scratchy, kind of not very much definition to the recording, and you're just kind of like, this is what people used to listen to, and it's like some of it's really good stuff. Ain't Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, like that's a good song. Ain't nobody knows you when you're down and out.
Does it go all the way up to like Stevie Ray, or is that a little too modern?
I don't know. It hasn't yet.
See, like that's the era of blues. Well, I like a certain amount of blues, but I'm not as well versed in it as some people. Like Stevie Ray Vaughan and that style is kind of my favorite. I like some modern blues, but the bands that I like that are modern blues are slowly turning into like bands that aren't really that much blues anymore. Like I always liked the Black Keys for that, but they're becoming more like poppy and strange as time goes on.
I don't know. There
Jack
is something
White
though
just went
about
crazy.
like the Jack White album that I enjoy listening to really does have that flavor in it. And he's all over the place. With Lazaretto is the album I'm talking about, and he does a lot of different stuff in there, but you can really feel that kind of blues influence.
Yeah. Like listen to Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground, like that, like songs like that. I would definitely consider blues. I don't know if like traditional blues people would consider that though.
Who cares? I don't. I just like I just sort of enjoy good music, but I picked the classic one because I wanted to go with the older stuff, and I don't know. Like there's something neat about. I mean, there's different levels of production. So I think pretty sure some of it comes up pretty modern, and there's just covers of older ones, but it's really cool to hear that older stuff and just to think about people listening to that on the radio. It almost sounds like, almost takes you back to that old sort of like 40s and 50s kind of feel in your mind because of the really low radio style recordings where you don't have all the instruments really well defined and produced well. It's just kind of muddy but it's still got this great texture.
You only had like one or two takes. It's not something so overproduced that it took like a month to make it perfect and 12 writers. It was just like 3 guys like in some like old studio in like backwoods Mississippi.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that scene from what is Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
Oh Brother,
I am a man of constant sorrow. I have seen trouble all my days. For 6 long years, I'm bound to wander, and so on and so forth.
Yes. That movie has such an excellent soundtrack. Not even just that song. Like I usually don't like gospel, but there's like an Alison Krauss song in there that's fantastic. There's just a lot of good music there.
I need to watch that movie again. I did not appreciate it as much as I think I should the first time I watched it.
It's between that and Big Lebowski for my favorite Coen Brothers movie.
Do we have another question, Tony? Since we answered the last one so thoroughly, we've just really dished out all the info on that.
Supposedly, we have another question coming in, but they just asked, am I too late?
Well, tell them no, and I'll talk about my car.
I did.
Okay.
Hannah, get back.
And I'll talk about my car. So I've been having car trouble, Tony. Which,
yeah?
Yeah, I have. So we have our minivan, and then I have the machine of death, as Brentley calls it, my death car, the 1990 Ford Tempo. He calls it the death car because he thinks I'm going to die in it, and that's only because it's falling apart. But it actually runs really well most of the time. But
yeah.
A couple months ago, I went and saw Birdman in Pensacola, which is sort of it's like the big town that we live in, but we don't really live in. It's like 45 minutes away. And I drove there, and my car had been acting up a little bit strange, and it really started acting up bad there. and it was this like when I would go to accelerate, you push the gas down, and it just kind of choke. It's like, and then like it finally get up to speed.
Yeah.
So much of a problem. And so it sat in my driveway after that. Mostly, I think I tried to drive it a couple more times, but basically it sat after that. And I was, I don't have a lot of money, so I can't replace everything at once. I'm pretty handy, but I kept trying to troubleshoot it on and off. And there was other stuff in between because we went on vacation and things, so there was other reasons why it didn't get fixed immediately. But I started out, I was like, well, this feels like a fuel-air mixture problem, Tony. A lot of times, you either have too much fuel or not enough air coming in. This is my experience with like small engines anyway, and so it'll really mess up the way your engine runs. So I started out, changed the air filter. I thought maybe the airflow is too small, not good enough. That didn't work. Then I changed, saved up a little bit more money, and I bought a gasoline filter. I was like, the fuel filter, maybe that's clogged up, maybe it's not getting enough fuel, that's causing the problem. No dice. So it's like, well, this is disappointing, but I guess the only other really big component in this system is the fuel filter. I'm going to have to drop like $80 and get me the fuel filter. So I got the fuel filter, spent, most of a day replacing that. No dice, Tony.
Oh, that sucks. I hate that
sunk
so much.
over $100 into this car, and it wouldn't run. And I was like, really? It won't run. What else could it be? And then I got the bright idea, 2 months into this project and $150 in, to check the spark plugs. And guess what the car needed, Tony?
You just needed a tuna.
It needed spark plugs. That's like the easiest thing to do to your car. Like, it's easier than changing the oil. You don't even have to jack it up or nothing.
Yeah, the only thing easier is the air filter.
The air filter is pretty easy, yeah. But, my car runs now. It's got a whole, it's got a new fuel filter, new fuel pump, new air filter.
You got another 5,000 miles out of it for that $150.
Probably more than that. Honestly, it's really reliable, which is the problem.
Yeah.
It's going to keep running until I hate it. But it was nice to get back out on the road with my car that is eventually going to kill me. Next thing I got to work on is the brakes.
It would be really inconvenient for someone who's really into cranking to have a car like yours, where you're just like, man, I can't even get out of my car now.
What? Is that inconvenient?
It depends on what you got to do.
Are they just so fascinated by not being able to start it that they?
No, I'm saying your YouTube videos could be put up there for crankers, whenever you're trying to start it and you're there and back again stuff.
Oh, I haven't done one of those in a long while. I kind of gave up on that.
I bet it starts a lot better than those ones, but there were times where you're sitting there for 30 seconds just revving the engine.
Yeah. It doesn't start super fast yet, Tony. I'm not sure if that's something I can fix or if I want to fix, but it doesn't when you crank it, it still takes before it finally kicks over. I don't know what that is. Somebody knows
and
about
for people
cars.
that aren't in the know,
I can guarantee you it's not the fuel filter, it's not the fuel pump, it's not the air filter, and it is not the spark plugs at this time.
For those who haven't listened, I think that was episode 90 or something like that. Go to Urban Dictionary and look up cranking, and you'll get what we're talking about.
Don't go. You don't need to know about that, all right? Nobody needs to know about that, Tony. Ever.
Yeah, it was a Florida man moment, I think.
Was it? I don't know. Anyway, did we get our question from Hannah?
Yes, we did.
What is the question, Hannah?
What is the most quotable movie ever?
This is going to be subjective to us, I would say. What would you say, Tony? What's your take on it?
I keep thinking of movies that just have one or two really good lines. You think of Terminator 2 and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of one where there's just line after line after line that you can pull out. I know that you talk with your guys at work about certain movies. It goes Transformers and stuff for you. But
not because it's just the one line from Transformers. Transformers 4 where the guy says, math algorithms, why can't we make what we want to make the way we want to make it? Only he says it crazy. Math!
Yeah.
Algorithms! films. Why can't we make what we want to make the way we want to make it? Just love saying that. I haven't said that in a long time, Tony. It's been like a month. Woo! Glad to get that one out.
It wouldn't be a Human Echoes podcast without at least one Transformers reference.
We don't do it every week. But no, I would say, like, the one that comes to my mind, and it's probably not the right answer, but for me, it's probably Airplane or The Princess Bride.
Yeah, both of those definitely work.
I always have, like, especially The Princess Bride, now that I think about it, always have lines from that popping into my head. Not all the time, but, like, at least once a week, I feel like I wish that there was somebody around who had seen The Princess Bride so I could quote it to them, but they're not. So all the dudes in my back room will watch it with me.
I'm trying to think of people that I know that haven't seen it. There are probably a lot of people who haven't seen it enough times to really get the references, but
yeah, the Don't Call Me Shirley, and I always, for some reason, I always end up quoting to AJ, and I get it wrong, but AJ and Jack, especially Jack, my little one, 6-month-old, I'll start saying, like, he's the big cheese, the top man, the hot dog, like that whole, like, long spiel, and I don't remember all the bits, but I just love that, like naming all the superlatives I can think of. that one bit that guy, the air traffic controller guy, goes on is hilarious.
I think the thing that's been quoted most on this show is probably "Dadgum."
I don't know that that's a quote anymore, Tony. It's just something that I say.
Yeah, but it's a Cars reference.
It is. I mean, it was at one point. Now it's just part of my vocabulary.
Otherwise, I'm not thinking of any, like, offhand, just those two movies. I'm sure there's something we're missing, some Pixar thing that, like, kids are all about.
Well, that's not for our generation, though. I mean, like, there are going to be more movies that come up, and it'll be different for different eras, but I think for us, really, comedies especially lend themselves to it. If you, although you can't, I can't actually quote any of the stuff, but if you saw the Ted 2 Red Band trailer, there are lines from that I could quote right if I wanted to right now.
There were tons of Simpsons references too. Like, I remember growing up, that was like most of what people were talking about. Lots of South Park references. Like, things people quote all the time.
That's not a movie, though. Well, I guess Simpsons and South Park had a movie, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's
neither of those really had, like, South Park movie had some good quotable stuff. I can't remember a whole lot from the Simpsons movie. I saw it once and didn't really care that much. I loved the Simpsons for the first 11 years, but there's only so many years that it can stay good. South Park has somehow stayed incredible for like 18 seasons now.
I don't watch either one of those with any kind of regularity at all, so I can't comment.
Yeah.
I will say, I do want to ask you, though, have you watched any of the new Hobbit movies?
I've seen all of them.
So you saw
it was more out of a sense of closure than, like...
So you saw the second one. I mean, you said you saw all of them. I'm just going... I recently saw the second one, or started... I haven't finished it yet. But I started watching it because I got HBO Go with my new cable plan, and it was on there. And I was like, I haven't seen this. I kind of liked the first Hobbit. I thought the first Hobbit was pretty cool. And I said, well, I'll watch the second one, because the third one's coming out like in Redbox on DVD, and I'm going to see that, probably. And that may have been the most disappointing movie experience that I've had in a long time.
Well, you didn't finish it, so you didn't get to see the best part of that movie, which is like Frodo and Smaug. Smaug.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, like, what the middle part of that movie, Tony. So you're going along, like, the first 40 minutes of that are awesome. I feel like the first 40 minutes of the second Hobbit, really feel like Lord of the Rings. They're getting chased by those
big
orcs.
Spiders.
There's that giant bear dude, who also turns into a giant regular dude. And
he was actually in the books, so that was kind of nice.
See what?
He was actually in The Hobbit, so that was kind of nice and refreshing compared to what some of the things that have been shoehorned in.
Right, and the spiders are there, and about the time I get to the spiders, I'm thinking, like, what is... Like, people trash this movie all the time. Like, I've heard so many negative things. What is so bad about this movie that people hate? Because these spiders look awesome. You know, people talk about the special effects and too much CG, but I was like, this CG on the spider is incredible. There's no part of me that does not believe I'm looking at a giant spider. I mean, I know in my brain that the giant spider does not actually exist, but they are rendered so beautifully and so well, and then the elves show up.
Yeah.
What the heck,
Like
Tony?
ruined that. It was so bad.
How did they do them so bad? They turns from Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, whatever, into Lord of the Rings, the 80s side-scrolling action game.
Yeah.
With just, I mean, those characters had no physical weight on the screen.
Yeah.
They're bouncing around like somebody's holding up pieces of paper in front of the camera, just like, doop, 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 doop.
And whenever it looks like an orc can even get close to touching them, you can't really care that they're just slaughtering them. There's no danger for Legolas, or I can't even remember Evangeline Lilly's character's name.
It was so bad. Like, I was really disappointed. I don't know, like
You need to finish it because when like Smaug actually gets on screen, it's really good. That entire middle, like that needed to be cut down to all like that could be easily a 90-minute movie and it would have been a lot better.
It seems like there's that whole thing with the one dwarf and the elf that doesn't really go. I mean, eventually, I know that it's going to go somewhere. Like he's going to be getting sick, and I think she's probably going to come with the formula and save the day so he doesn't die. Maybe, I don't know, but like it didn't matter. You know, once, like, I actually got to the part where they were about to open the door into the mountain, and, like, once it's the dwarves by themselves again, and them in that city, and them with the one guy whose, like, dad was the archer who failed to kill the dragon, all that stuff was fine. All that stuff, again, maybe not as good as the Lord of the Rings movies, but it felt like Middle-earth again. But somehow, the elves being on screen, and I realize they're not in the original book, Tony, and I'm not complaining that they were added. I'm just saying, I'm complaining that they were added so poorly.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought Peter Jackson had more respect than that. I understand people have problems with Peter Jackson, but like watching the first 3 Lord of the Rings movie, you get the idea that he's really enamored with this world. And I thought that the first movie of The Hobbit was pretty good. I didn't, again, maybe not up to the same standards, but for it to just fall flat on its face like that for 45 minutes and have Legolas surfing on an orc while he's shooting. I mean, it was different in Lord of the Rings when he's going down those steps on the shield, right? Like, you can kind of buy that. You don't surf.
The only times it got that way were in the third movie whenever he's, like, sliding up and down the elephants and things like that.
Yeah, I guess, but it just went on and on in this one for so long, and it was so bad.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed because I was all ready to just be like, this, I don't know what you guys are complaining about. This is awesome. And then just like, it was like a different movie suddenly.
Al, I'm afraid you're going to have to check your hipster because you should have liked this movie with how much people hated it.
Nope. I feel like everybody who hated the second again, I haven't seen the end. Maybe it gets wonderful at the end. But that middle part was just so distracting. Just the special effects. And I know how good the people who worked on this are at special effects. How did they go so bad with the elves?
Yeah.
They move so weird and so, like, kind of blurry and out of focus. They don't look like an actual...
Yeah. I never leave a movie theater to go to the bathroom. I'll, like, sit there and suffer for 2.5 hours if I have to. And I just, like, I got up and walked out and, like, stretched my legs, and I was bored with that action sequence. That never happens whenever I go and pay for a movie.
Legolas standing on the heads of the dwarves as they're going down the river in a barrel? Like, what? Who thought that was a good idea?
But it's supposed to be slapsticky and fun, more fun than Lord of the Rings was.
The dwarves are supposed to what makes it fun. Not the elves are not supposed to be slapstick.
Yeah.
You don't have slapstick elves. Number 1 rule: no slapstick elves. I've spoken.
I agree. Although, like I said, just look at the part with Smaug is like not even part of that. And I think you'll be able to at least understand that there are redeeming qualities of the second. The third one, I don't even know.
I heard that, like, one of the complaints I heard about the third one is that it just jumped right into the action and there wasn't any context for the action because you had left the characters in the second one for like a year. And so you're like coming back into it, which is part of the reason why I wanted to watch them back to back. I thought maybe sometimes movies work that are designed like that, like the second 2 Pirates movies. I thought, there's the whole Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. and I thought
Yeah.
that 2 and 3 worked okay as like one movie, but because people saw them separately, they didn't like them as much. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I just remember kind of really enjoying the weird world building of that universe.
Yeah.
But
I didn't mind those movies. Like I didn't see anything after 3 though.
I didn't. I saw 4, but I didn't love 4. 4 was the one I really didn't like.
Are you gonna see 5 now that they're making another?
I mean, maybe. I'm not saying no. I don't even think they. I guess they've started shooting it, but like, I'm not gonna make that decision now. It's not like Star Wars, where I'm like, yes, let's get a babysitter for. I've seen the trailer for Star Wars, Tony, and I know that it looks reasonably decent, and that they're, I understand that, but I don't know what's going into Pirates 5, and I don't know what it's gonna be like, so I'm not gonna make that decision right now.
For sure.
I know I'm going to go see Avengers. By the time you guys see this, I probably will have seen Avengers: Age of Ultron.
It's going to be a little bit crazy for me this weekend because I'm probably going to see the Avengers Thursday night, and then I'm going to go to the Stanley Film Festival and just binge. And I'm going to try to say hi to Elijah Wood.
All right. Well, guys, by the way, hopefully Tony can upload some vlogs to our YouTube channel of his experience going to the Stanley Film. Is it Stanley Hotel?
Yeah, it's the Stanley Film Festival at the Stanley Hotel.
Okay. And
it's definitely going to be pretty cool. They're going to have the entire place lit up red. It's going to have like some haunted experience thing going on. It's going to be a fun time. So I'm going to try to do as much reporting as possible because I want to get invited to events like this more often, because Colorado has 3 major horror film festivals and all of them are awesome. Last year they were one of the first ones in America to show the Babadook at this one. Like they premiered Tucker and Dale vs. Evil at Telluride Horror Film Festival. So yeah, I got to do my work so that these cool places keep calling us back, and eventually I can call Al out here on a business trip.
That would be very cool. But until that happens, you guys should go to humanechoes.com and look at our stuff that we got up there, videos and blog posts and things. There was a new book and a brew this week, wasn't there, Tony?
Yep, there was. I think there's another one lined up for the week that this comes out, like the coming week anyway. We try to do discussion posts on Mondays. We've got videos going up all the time on the YouTube channel. There's a lot of stuff going on.
And you can also help support the podcast if you liked it by clicking that donate button or the subscribe button and either doing a one-time donation or a monthly donation. Those of you who do that are incredibly awesome. If you feel like this podcast is worth $1 or $2 of your hard-earned money, and we know it is hard-earned, we would greatly appreciate it. It helps us, get by and encourages us and helps us buy new equipment and watch new movies and have more stuff to talk about, replace the pieces in our car that don't need to be replaced, all that jazz.
And also, if you want to contribute without having to pay anything extra, if you shop at Amazon.com, which I'm sure is most of you, click on the Amazon link on the side. Whatever you buy within, I think, 36 hours will end up getting us a cut. And, yeah, it's just a good way of supporting us without having to pay anything extra.
Yeah, thanks for reminding people about that, Tony. I forget about that all the time. I'm on Amazon fairly frequently, and I always forget to click the stupid Amazon affiliate link that would give money back to me. What is wrong with me, Tony? Anyway, y'all have a great week. Next week, we're going to be talking about Karate Robo Zaborgar, which is a Japanese language film, which is a remake, by the way, Tony. Watch the new one, not the old one. They'll have clips for the old one in the credits for the new one, but the new one is the one we watched. And it is the most crazy pants bonker Japanese movie ever. And I'm hopefully going to have Brantley, my friend from work, on to talk about it. He is expert in all things Japan and weird Japan. So he should bring some fresh insight as well as some fun humor. I love that guy. He's me and him have the best time. You can see him
on our YouTube channel more than anything else. There's a podcast way back in the day, episode in the 70s or something.
We talked about Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark. I'll see if I can link to it in the show notes. But and when Mega Shark versus Colossus comes out, we'll probably record an episode about that, either a 0.5 or we'll do an episode proper. But
I'm not sure that my heart can take that one, so that might be Ally and Brantley alone. But anyway, you guys have an awesome week. We will see you next time, and I'll be showing you a lot from the Stanley Film Festival whenever we catch up.
Bye, guys.
Bye.